Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we're going to be putting the 2.4 liter Ecotec engine back into the Malibu. So let's get to it. So in the last episode, if you did not catch it, it's going to be right above me. We went ahead and redid the timing on this 2.4 liter. Fairly simple, fairly easy. This 2.4 liter, like I said, I think I had around 120, 150,000 miles on it. So timing chain didn't appear to be done ever, so we went ahead and changed it all out, and it's a good thing anyways for peace of mind. So this thing should be bulletproof now for quite some time. It turned over, had good compression, everything like that, so I'm very confident with this motor here. So what we're going to be doing now today is putting it back into the vehicle. So it's fairly simple to put these back into the vehicle. They're, with the Malibu, at least with the Malibu, you have tons of room because obviously a V6 can fit in this too. So I got tons of room to shove this 4-cylinder in there and make it into its home, no problem. So we're gonna go ahead and go through the process of getting this thing jacked up, lowered into the vehicle, and then also throw in a few bell housing bolts, and then continue on with the process. We got things like torque converter bolts after that, coolant lines, engine mount. I mean, there's a whole slew of things, but I mean, honestly, this thing goes back together fairly simple. Just step by step, reverse from what we did, taking it out. So let's go ahead and get this thing jacked up and lowered on in. There we go. Engine is sat in there. We have two bell housing bolts. We have one right there, and we have one underneath the thermostat housing. You might have caught me taking off the thermostat housing. Definitely recommended to get to that bolt. So that thermostat housing is held on with two 10-millimeter bolts, one on top, one on the bottom, and that just pops right off. Thermostat usually stays within that coolant tube. So the thermostat housing is all that comes out, and you really don't have any coolant leak. So that's awesome. And that helps with the other bolt, makes it so much simpler. So those two bolts are in. We did reach on into the transmission, and we can spin the torque converter. So that means things are nice and free and loose. So that's exactly what we want. And then another thing that is important is to get all these lined up the way they should be, right back where they were, and then bolted down. So that will hold the engine in. On the back side here, you might have been noticing me fiddling around, and that was because of that carrier bearing right there. So that carrier bearing, I would highly recommend getting it flipped into the correct position as you're lowering the engine. Flipping into the correct position will prevent you from having to, one, remove the engine again to get it flipped around, or removing the axle to get it to flip around. So just getting it set out right is a better way to do it. And then the last thing I want to talk about, and that should have been the first thing I did when putting this engine in, is remove the harmonic balancer bolt. I promise you, you will see night and day difference. I forgot until halfway through this that I needed to do that, and that's the reason it was binding. Once I remove the bolt right here, we gain this full head of room. So what is that, probably a ½ inch of room? So gaining a ½ inch of room is key on these 4-cylinders because they're just a little bit longer, I believe, than the V6. So with the 4-cylinder, remove that and you'll be sitting way better. But I mean, overall, I think we can go ahead and go around, put in the rest of the bell housing bolts. So I'll probably roll underneath there, work on putting those all in, attach that carrier bearing, and then we'll catch up from there. All right, so it's been a couple minutes, but made some good progress doing a few things. Got all the bell housing bolts in there, all the way around by the starter hole. I'll take you underneath. The other thing I did was we put all the torque converter bolts in, all 3 of them. Got them torqued down nice and tight. Right, tight is right on those. You want to make sure those are very, very tight. So I got everything still cinched up here, and let's go ahead and go underneath. I'll show you what we worked on underneath. So right there is a few more bell housing bolts on the bottom. The bottom ones are 15 millimeter that go through the oil pan. Keep curling up around. We got more bell housing bolts. You can see one here that's attached to this little bracket that goes by the transmission. Attaches up top. We got one more right above. We have a cross bracket that goes from the transmission to the engine. And then we have the carrier bearing here. So the carrier bearing is held in by 3 15 millimeters. And those went in just no problem. Otherwise than that, that's about all we did underneath here. And we also put in that harmonic balancer bolt too. We needed that to spin over the harmonic balancer or the crankshaft to put the torque converter bolts in. But next, I think we can start working on things up here, like putting in the air conditioner, alternator, starter. So we're gonna go ahead and work through that and catch up with you then. Quite a bit more progress made. So as I mentioned, we were going to throw on the air conditioner and the starter. Both things are on now. So after those went on, I went ahead and draped over the electrical components that go on the front side of the engine. So we got things like the knock sensor, grounds, the live wire for the, or power wire for the starter remote, trigger wire. We also have the air conditioner wire over there, and then plugged in the fans. So those are all things on the front of the engine that needed to be plugged in. Also crank sensor is there too, and oil pressure sensor right there. So those are all things that we went ahead and plugged in. And then over here we got the coolant line that we're going to have to put back on over on the right side, which goes on that coolant neck. And then after that we can put on the alternator, intake, and then all the other components that go along with it on the front here. So let's go ahead and get into that. All right, so we went ahead and put the intake on and the alternator on. Got everything plugged in. The wires are on. Going from the alternator to the starter. Intake, everything is connected. We're just going to plug the sensor in real quick. Let's see. This is either a map or something like that. So that's plugged in now. We got grounds on right there. Everything's looking really good on the front. We can go ahead and throw on the throttle body, and we have a vent tube here. Also a few other little things here and there. But we'll also be working on this right side by throwing the coolant hose on there, and the back heater hoses also need to go on. So we're gonna go ahead and probably work on that now. Well, that was about 30 minutes worth of work, but a ton done. So you can see here, throttle body's on, all the wiring harness on the top is being laid over. Coolant lines are now all attached everywhere. We hooked up all the things in the back, like the coolant temperature sensor, oxygen sensor, got the camshaft position sensor in the back, also the one in the front. Over here we have the camshaft actuator sensors. And then coil packs are plugged in. I mean, it's just pretty much completely buttoned up for the most part. Also had to throw in the oil dipstick, hook up a few more, vent lines and coolant lines here and there. I think what we can do next is go ahead and put on the top air breather or air box or however you want to call it, but it's just one big unit that goes right on top. I personally don't like them, because it's hard for troubleshooting because you have to take it off to troubleshoot, and the mass airflow sensor then is unplugged. Very annoying, but so whatever it is. So we're gonna go ahead and throw that baby on, and we'll recollect after that. Right, air box, breather, and this giant monstrosity is all on there and secured down. Next thing we can do is throw some oil in there and put the battery in it. If we do start this up tonight at all, it's going to be loud because there is no exhaust on it. So take a look back here. There is no exhaust. So the exhaust is over here in the list of parts because the person I bought it from, like I mentioned in the previous video, decided he wanted the catalytic converter. So I think he got the secondary cat or maybe even the resonator, but he took the whole dang exhaust. So I have to find a new exhaust at salvage yard or something, but at least I have the front catalytic converter. That's good, but man, very annoying the fact that he took that. But nonetheless, we will go ahead and get that there put on. We might actually do that here in a few minutes because it wouldn't be too loud with just that on. But just off the header, that would be pretty loud for sure. So regardless, we'll go ahead and put the oil in there, put the battery on there, and then probably work on that catalytic converter, honestly. So let's go ahead and do that. Well, that was a pain in the butt for being under the car and on the ground without a lift. But the exhaust manifold is now on. It's kind of hard to see, but it's right there. So we can go ahead and fill it up with oil now and put the battery in, and we can see if it starts. It's gonna be loud, but we can see if it starts. Alright, so my camera died while I was doing the oil and the battery. So that's the last thing that you saw us do. The oil filter was put in while the engine was out. I just do that sometimes because it's just easier. The next thing we need to do, since this thing's pretty much all ready to go, is we need to now disconnect the fuel rail right here. So the fuel rail is this harness right there. And by disconnecting that, what we can do is turn the engine over to let it prime the oil pump and lubricate those bearings. So we're gonna go ahead and remove that and then turn the key over. There you go. With that disconnected, we can go ahead and turn it over. There we go. That should prime the engine. Now we'll go ahead and plug that back together. And let's see if she'll start up for the first time. And there we go. Sounds like it's running on all cylinders. It's not missing any timing or anything like that. It's just loud because we don't have the exhaust on. It's pretty much just engine to exhaust manifold to catalytic converter and just dumps right out into the ground. So that's the reason it's so loud, but not a big deal. We just wanted to hear it run for the first time and successfully, and it sounds perfectly, just like it should. So that's gonna pretty much do it. I'm just gonna do some odds and ends things on the vehicle, like install the radio and put the tire back on, just clean up the vehicle overall. But this is the main thing that we wanted to do on the Malibu. So pull the engine, timing chain, and put it back in, get it running. We'll go ahead and put the rest of it back together off camera because that's not really necessary to show, and just call it a day. But anyways, if this video helped you at all, make sure to click like, subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos if you can, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.